Hey TPT sellers, in this episode, let's explore how to get to the top of page 1 on TPT search, no effort required. I found an example of a store that has 3 reviews on the store so far. It only has 37 followers and it's based out of Thailand. And for a keyword with 110,000 results, they have a resource that only has 1 review, and this resource is ranking on page 1. So this store is competing with 110,000 results. It's on page 1. It's in position 10 today. Yesterday, when I did my research, it was in position 11. It only has 1 review. And this resource got to page 1 with no work required. How did they do it? Well, TPT is currently doing an experiment, and they are pinning underseen resources to page 1. So the real question in this episode that we're going to explore is, how can we optimize our resources to maximize our chances of getting pinned by TPT? My name is Mike Fuchigami. I am the host of the SEOTpreneur YouTube community. This episode is for everybody because, let's be honest, we would all like to be on page 1, especially if no work is required. If however, you are later on in your game and your journey, some people have time, some people have money. Either way, in business, you pay either with your time or with your money. And right now, your time might be more valuable than money. So if that's the case, rather than watching hours of my videos, just go to SEOT.consulting and let's talk one-on-one. On the other hand, if you don't have money to pay for consulting and you have time, then it's time to check out the January 2025 bootcamp that I'm running. Go to selfservedatatool.com, click at the top where it says bootcamp. Registration is open right now. You have until Sunday, January 5th, 2025, which is when this bootcamp starts. There's a video here that explains everything you need to know to help you get the most out of your New Year goals for 2025. In this video, we're going to explore the mechanism that TPT is using to pin results to the top of page 1. I'm going to talk about the theory. We'll look at the code to see if it's actually possible for TPT to manipulate the results in this way. We'll look at some case studies of resources that got pinned to the top of 1, and we'll look at who they are, and maybe we can find some patterns to maximize our chances of getting picked by TPT. We'll talk about the pros and cons of TPT manipulating results and pinning resources to a specific position that maybe they wouldn't be able to get to naturally. And finally, I'll sum up everything in this video with our TPT SEO takeaway. Let's talk about the theory. This is part of my Sunday SEO Secrets series, where we look at the Algolia manual. Algolia is the name of the search engine that TPT is using. If you're new to the channel, make sure you check out that video in the corner. It's my TPT SEO Masterclass. It's free and it walks you through everything that I know about TPT SEO based on months of diving deep into the manual and the code. On the Algolia website, they explain that it's possible to pin a specific resource, and they do this by creating custom rules. You can use rules to raise some results over others or put one result or banner at the top of the results. So that's what I think TPT is doing right now. They are raising some products over others, and they are pinning them to certain locations in the TPT search results. Algolia is a search engine that's used by many businesses. We're going to look at some use cases to think about how a business would create a search engine. And I think it's important to go through this because it provides context about how businesses select results to show up higher in search to meet their business goals. Remember, TPT is a business. It's a for-profit business. In the manual, it talks about how you can promote a single item, and this is the part that I think TPT is doing. Pretend there's a bookstore that wants to recommend a Harry Potter box set whenever someone is searching in the business for Harry Potter. The code is really simple. If the query, so the search term that the teacher types, includes the phrase Harry Potter, then promote the Harry Potter box set. It's interesting to note that you can pin up to 300 results per rule, but that's per rule. You can have multiple rules, so this isn't really a limit that's imposed on us. Here's what the code looks like. If the search term contains the pattern Harry Potter, you can set it to look for if Harry Potter is at the beginning of the search phrase, or if Harry Potter is at the end of the search phrase, or if the search phrase is exactly Harry Potter. But in this case, the example rule is if the search term contains the phrase Harry Potter. I haven't played around enough to know whether or not TPT is setting up so that it's looking for specific keywords by itself or whether it's that keyword within a phrase. I think it's looking for it exactly the way it is. The reason why I think that is because if I go to TPT and search up reading, I see a result with 4.8 thousand reviews. I see a result with 4,000 reviews, and then I have this result with 43 reviews, and it is outcompeting 3,300,000 results. So this result is pinned at position number 3, and it shows up in position number 3 if I search for reading. But if I open up a new window and type science of reading, which includes the phrase reading, if the rule was set up as contains, the rule will activate if that special phrase, in this case reading, or Harry Potter in the Algoli example, if it's part of the search phrase, then the rule will activate if the anchoring type is called contains. But when I look at science of reading, I see a resource with 1.2 thousand reviews. I see a resource with 726 reviews, 771 reviews, 934 reviews. I don't see this digraph decoding drills showing up in position number 3. And in fact, if I search for digraph decoding drills, it doesn't show up on page 1 for science of reading. So I think the way TPT is setting up their rules is it has to be that exact search phrase. So anchoring equals is, not contains. If we go back to the code, if I scroll down, if the rule activates, there's a consequence. And the consequence is that it will promote a specific resource to a specific position. In this case, it's pinning it to position 0, which is the very first result. So for computers, the first result is 0, and then it's 1 and 2 and 3. So this code would pin this resource, HP12345, in the example, and it would pin it at the top of search. And I think what TPT is doing is they are pinning specific resources to position 3 or position 1 or position 0, and they're trying to mix it up so that it's not too obvious that it's pinned. Now, I'm going to go over other ways that TPT could pin results. It's important to remember that this is how businesses prioritize certain products to show up in front of you so that you buy them. It's kind of like going to a grocery store and the products that they are promoting are at eye level instead of at the very bottom of the shelf. Same sort of strategy. And Algolia gives an example where if you're a store and you've placed best-selling items at the top of your search results by using custom ranking, but you want the newest release for a resource to show up at the very, very top, then you could set up a rule telling the engine that whenever iPhone is searched for, place the newest version at the top. But for the rest of the same brand phone, continue sorting by most sold. So then I wonder, is there an example in TPT land where the search engineers would want to promote a specific product? The Algolia manual talks about promoting several results. The example they give is you're running a promotion on the newest Apple products, and you can set up a rule telling the search engine that whenever Apple is searched for, place the newest release at the top. In this case, if the query was iPhone, then you would promote specific iPhone releases at the very beginning. Algolia gives the example of maybe a supermarket and tomato, which is a very simple search, but it might never return the fruit or vegetable. Well, because tomato is a fruit, but we call it a vegetable, But the reason why tomato, the fruit or vegetable, doesn't show up at the top is because there are too many tomato soup brands that are selling better than cherry tomatoes. So if it's just left by organic search rules, then the tomato soup brands get shown up at the top just because they have more sales or reviews or whatever the secret metric is for TPT to rank products. If you learned something new, can you please like the video? Or another way to put this is, if you want to support this channel, can you please like the video? Here in the SEOTpreneur YouTube community, we're trying to level up our business intelligence. I take things that I've learned from outside of TPT land, and I try to apply those lessons into what it would look like in the TPT ecosystem. But I also do science experiments where we're looking at how we expect things to go based on the algorithm, and then we try little experiments to see if that confirms our understanding. And based on those experiments, we learn about the system, and the more we learn, maybe the better we can position our products. SEOTpreneur is also about journalism. It's about reporting what we see in the TPT world, trying to look at it from an objective lens. And for me, my personal goal is to try to make the world a better place. If you knew me in the classroom, you knew that I ran the Better World Project. I believe that by active citizenship and speaking up when we see things that maybe we don't agree with, I think that's how we make the world better. I think it's by having courageous conversations that things improve. And so part of the SEOTpreneur community is to have honest and difficult conversations about what we see. How does this make things better? The challenge with being a TPT seller is that you can have the best resource in the world. If people don't find it, people can't buy it. I think information is key. I think knowledge helps us improve our marketing and getting our message out there. And if I can help you, the teacher who's trying to sell your resource, get in front of the teachers who need your resource and facilitate that exchange of goods for money, then you win because you make money and you're encouraged to make more products that you know work for you and probably will work for other teachers like you. Other teachers like you win because now they don't have to spend creating the resource that you made because teaching is crazy busy. There's so many expectations on the profession that TPT sellers, if you can do a little bit to ease them the load on a teacher, that's a huge win. And then students benefit because they're able to benefit from your lesson that their teacher purchased. And then the platform wins because they get a commission from our sales and the virtual cycle continues and it snowballs. So the more we learn, the better we understand the platform, the more we can sell, because we get our products in front of the right people who need our resources, and those resources help them teach in the classroom. And so you're helping students and teachers and yourself and the platform, and it's win-win-win. So if you want to support this channel, can you please like the video? It helps a lot. Thank you. Let's look at some examples of pinned resources so we can learn or try to find patterns as to how TPT is selecting these resources. If we know what TPT is doing, then we can try to do that so that we get noticed by TPT for this pinning experiment. So here's what I did. I looked at the top search items for pre-K and K in November and December. The TPT seller blog is awesome. They're providing more information to help us make data-informed decisions on our store. I love it. They have a post about what are teachers searching on TPT for in December and November. Here are the top search terms on TPT during this time for pre-K and K for educators filtering for those grade levels. This might be an older post that I have. The data is from November 2022 to December 2022. And right now this video is being recorded December 2024. So I took these 100 keywords and I put it into a Google Sheet tool that I've shared in the Ultimate Bundle. And that's TPT seller tip number 20. So if you want to try this experiment, if you search on TPT for TPT seller, there we are. The Ultimate Bundle is number 1 for TPT seller. It's out competing 380,000 results. So if you click on that resource, and then if you scroll down, it is resource number 20. So I'm going to go to page 4 to get to resource number 20. It's called Is TPT Search Broken? It's a keyword challenger detection tool. So I'm going to click download. I'm going to save it to my computer. I'm going to open up that PDF. I'm going to get a copy of the Google Sheet tool. I'm going to click make a copy. Now you'll have to read the important terms of service to make sure you're comfortable with what this tool does. It accesses the internet and goes to the TPT website. I'm going to allow access. And if I click on keyword ranking, it searches up the keyword reading and it'll pull up the results for the 3,300,000 search results. I'll pull them all up in here. And then what I did was I decided arbitrarily that 3% would be my cutoff rate. So for example, on the first page, the average number of reviews is 4,364. The top review is 4,797. The bottom review is 1,602. Based on your feedback, I added a new row that now says the maximum review. So the highest number review is 10,430 and the lowest review on that page is 43. But what I've done here is I figured out what 3% of the average number of reviews on the first page is, and that's my cutoff point. That's 131. So if I search for 131 reviews, I can see it found this resource at position number 3. And if I scroll down, it's highlighted in blue. So this is the anomaly. This is the unusual resource that has 43 reviews. The other ones have thousands of reviews. So it stands out as an outlier. And this is what I mean by TPT is pinning results to the top of search. If I click here to go see the page, here's the search for reading. And if I scroll down, here in position number 3 is this unusual resource that has been pinned with only 43 results. I use that to identify which resources seem to have an unusually low number of reviews. that it looks suspicious. By the way, TPT seller tip number 20 is awesome because it points out which resources are unusual. But if you want to see how your products are doing, in the ultimate bundle, there's resource number 10, and resource number 10 does the exact same thing, except you put in the name of your store and it'll pull out which resources from your store are ranking in the first 10 pages for that keyword. So this is a very cool tool to figure out how you are doing in terms of TPT search. Don't pay $80 to get this resource by itself. Scroll down, purchase the ultimate bundle, which is only $18 right now. When I launched that product, it was only $3. So hopefully you got it when it was $3 because it's a growing bundle. As I add more cool stuff, the price goes up. So here's my spreadsheet with the 100 keywords for kindergarten all the way down to 100. And for each keyword, I pasted in the position of the top resource that had fewer than 3% of the average number of reviews on that first page. And I wrote down the rank number. So this Christmas resource has a product that shows up at position number 1. And then I looked to see which of those resources with a low number of reviews are on page 1. So that's why I have here page 1, page 1, page 1. Because not all the resources that I looked at were on page 1. If it wasn't on page 1, then it probably wasn't pinned to the top. So some resources like Thanksgiving or Veterans Day didn't have any keywords pinned to the top. The final thing I did to come up with my short list of resources to dive into is I looked to see which of the keywords had page 1 as an anomaly, where the lowest review on page 1 was lower than on page 2, page 3, and page 4. Here's a more typical example with Veterans Day. 31 reviews, that's the cutoff part for 3% of the average number of reviews on page 1. And I can see here the lowest number of reviews on page 1 is 105. The product with the lowest number of reviews on page 2 is 65. So it gets lower and lower and lower. The product with the lowest number of reviews on page 4 is 15. So I said it was unusual for page 1 to have the lowest number of reviews compared to pages 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And if page 1 was really low, then that's unusual. And I said, okay, that probably means that something was pinned. Here's my list of 100 keywords from the TPT blog for pre-K and K. Google Sheets lets me filter stuff. You don't ever have to do this. This is just me showing you what I did because some of you are like me and you like Google Sheets. I know we exist out there. We're a very rare breed, but we exist. If you like Google Sheets, leave a comment, say hello, because I love Google Sheets. All right, so what I did was I filtered to find only the resources that were on page 1. And then some page 1 didn't have the lowest number of reviews compared to page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. So I didn't look at those. I only looked at products where page 1 had the lowest number of reviews compared to the first 4 pages. So I'm going to filter this and only show the ones that had page 1 with the minimum number. This is a glitch in the code, but some resources here, they didn't show up in the first 4 pages. So I put a marker here that says not applicable. It's not actually on page 1. It just doesn't exist. So I'm going to filter my dates to hide resources that were not available. And then there was one resource here, Gingerbread Man Craft, where the number of resources on the page was only 1,500. I ignored this one because the number of competition was too small, and I think this would have been a false positive. So then I had a list of resources that were probably pinned, and these 27 resources I did a deeper analysis on. The first question I asked was, is there a preview in these pinned resources? Because I thought maybe TPT was only choosing resources that had video previews or PDF previews. And if that was the case, then you would want to make sure that you had a video preview or a PDF preview. But when I analyzed 27 pinned resources, I found that there were 5 resources that had no preview at all, 5 resources that had both a video and a PDF preview, and then the rest had PDF previews. I think this is a snapshot of the resources in TPT land. I think most of them have some sort of preview, but there's still a small number that don't. Here's an example of a pinned resource that has no preview. If I search up holiday in position 15, I have a product from a store that's from Florida. The store has 2,400 reviews and 6,300 followers. So this is position number 15, 3D Presents. So here's holiday, 2 million results for this, and it's in position 15. So position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So here's the resource. It has only 12 reviews. And if I click on this resource to check it out, I can see that there are 4 covers, but there's no preview here at all. So that tells me you don't need to have a preview in order to be pinned to the top. Do you agree with that? Let me know in the comments what you think. The next question I looked at was to see, well, how many covers do you need if you're going to show up as a pinned resource? 24 of the pinned resources had 4 covers. 2 resources only had 3 covers. 1 resource had only 1 cover. So if we look at this resource that only had 1 cover, if I search up the term science, there's 1,300,000 results. In position 8, I found a resource about what is science. The store is in New York, and this is a bigger store with 35,000 reviews and 13,000 followers. So if I go to position 8, here's the search term science. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What is science? And if I click on that resource, I can see there's only 1 cover, but they also have a video and they have a 1-page PDF preview. So in other words, if your resource only has 1 cover, your product can still be selected to be pinned. So the next question I tried to figure out was, is there a certain size store that TPT is favoring for these pinned results? For example, are they only picking new stores? Small stores, big stores, stores that have been around since the beginning of TPT? How big are the stores that they're pinning at the top of search results? This is a graph. At the bottom, I see the number of store reviews. On the vertical axis, I see the number of store followers. And I see this is kind of in a line, and that sort of agrees that for naturally growing stores, the more reviews you have, the more followers you get. As you know, I like looking at outliers because I find they're interesting and they shed light on the information. So here's an example of an outlier all the way up here. It has over 150,000 store reviews and it has over 75,000 store followers. So I decided to look it up. This is a big store. It has a lot of reviews. It's showing up in position number 3 if I search for the term November. November only has 35,000 results. This store is from California. They have 84,000 followers and it's in position number 3, the November activity packet. So here's position 1, position 2, position 3. It only has 34 reviews compared with 5,000 reviews, 746 reviews. That one might be pinned at the top there. 4,000 reviews, 1,000 reviews, 2,000 reviews. I can see that this store has a lot of followers and I can see that this store is a huge store. And then I wondered, what is the smallest store that I can find that gets pinned? So I took that same graph and I put it on a logarithmic scale, which means it goes up by multiples of 10. Down here at the bottom, I have the number of store reviews. So 1 store review, 10 store reviews, 100 store reviews, 1,000 store reviews, 10,000 store reviews, 100,000 store reviews. And the same thing with store followers. And I can find here a store that has fewer than 10 reviews and less than 100 store followers. And in fact, this store only has 3 reviews. They rank number 11 for beginning sounds, which has 110,000 results. So they beat out 110,000 results. Here's beginning sounds. They're ranked number 11. In my research notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So today they're in position 10. And that's because there is fluctuation in search. Maybe there was a pinned resource ahead of it that's now been removed. This store hasn't changed the default cover on their store yet. And I can see with 37 followers, they're from Thailand. I wanted to get a sense of whether TPT was choosing smaller stores or mid-sized stores or gigantic stores. So I arbitrarily said, if your store has less than 1,000 reviews, I called you a small store. If you have between 1,000 and 10,000 reviews, I called you a middle-sized store. And then if you have over 10,000 reviews, I called you a large store. And here's what I found. It seems pretty even that small stores and medium-sized stores and large stores have an equal chance to get pinned to the top of TPT search. I think this is really important to look at because one of the ideas out there is, oh no, they're pinning new stores that have no reviews to the top of search, and that's impacting my ability to make sales. But they're also picking gigantic stores with over 10,000 or over 100,000 store reviews, and they're pinning them to the top of search as well. So just for fun, look at this graph. Which bar would you be in? I think my EduCircle store is in the yellow bar and my TPT seller store is in the red bar. But if we look at this from the perspective of trying to optimize our chances of getting selected by TPT to be pinned to the top of search, it doesn't matter how big your store is. It looks like everyone has the same chance. Now I wondered, where is the product getting pinned on page 1? Is it always position 1? Is it ever position 24? So this is a bar graph. On the left-hand side, we have positions going from 1 to 24. It looks like most results are pinned near the top. The lowest result is pinned at position 19. The bottom is the number of products that were pinned at that location. So if you are chosen by TPT to get pinned to the top, it looks like you'll be there from position 1 to position 19. And what I learned by looking at the code is if there's one rule that puts you at position number 3, and there's another rule that also activates and that puts you at position number 3, then one of you gets bumped down to position number 4. So that's why we see some variations. So part of me, when I look at this and I see a whole bunch of resources pinned at position 2 and position number 3, I wonder if the code said, hey, pin it at position 2, but when it got there, there was another challenger resource that was pinned at position 2, and so then it got bumped down to position number 3. Who knows? This is all speculation because we're on the outside trying to figure out what TPT is doing. Here's an example of a resource that's in the number 1 position. If I look up the search term Christmas, there's 360,000 results. The first result has 55 reviews. The next one has almost 1,000, and then 2.2 thousand, 3.9 thousand, and then another odd one that seems low, 282, and then 3.1 thousand, 1.5 thousand. So I might wonder if this one here that only has 282 reviews, I wonder if it was also pinned, but then I wonder if it started to accumulate reviews. If I type Christmas in the Challenger detection tool, this is the winter update that we're using. If I identify resources that have fewer than 3% of the average number of reviews on page 1, then the cutoff point is 113. And that's why this one here with only 55 reviews stands out as an anomaly. But I can see other resources here, like that one for 282 reviews, or this one for 909 reviews, they do look a little bit unusual because everything else has thousands of reviews. And see, isn't this odd that the minimum number of reviews for page 1 is 55? But if I look at page 2 and page 3 and page 4, they're 270, 242, and 252 respectively. So 55 seems unusually low. That's the kind of resource that I was looking into for this experiment. For context, this store is from Arizona in the United States. It has 9,000 reviews on the store and around 5,400 followers. My next question was, I wondered if there was a pattern. Are they picking new resources from newer stores? So this is a graph. On the bottom, I have the age of the resource, and we can tell it based on the product ID. So if I look at the TPT Seller Tips and Tricks resource, for example, the very last set of numbers is the product ID. In this case, it's 11 million, and I made this resource in February, March of this year. The newer resources will have a larger product ID, and they'll be on the right-hand side. And then the older resources will have smaller product IDs like 4 million instead of 12 million, and the 4 million product ID will be on the left. On the vertical scale, I have the size of the store as determined by the number of followers. So 1 follower, 10 follower, 100 followers, 1,000 followers, 10,000, 100,000 followers. So if there was a pattern where TPT was choosing newer resources from new stores and older resources were coming from the older stores, then a newer resource from a new store, I would expect to see a dot down here on the bottom right, because it's a small store with maybe only 10 followers and the product ID would be really, really big. And then if it was an older store that was getting selected, maybe that's coming from an older product. And so then older products would be here at the left and older stores would be at the top. So I would expect a point in the top. So if there really was a pattern where they were choosing new stores, new resources, then I would expect a line that sort of went like this. And then I would expect to see the dots around this line. But that's not what we actually see. We don't actually see any sort of pattern here. And so what this tells me is that big stores, which are near the top, they are choosing resources that might be new from the right, or they might be made a couple years ago or made several years ago. Likewise, if you're a younger store with only 100 followers, they'll still pick resources that are on the left here that are older, made several years ago, and they'll pick resources that are made newer within the last year. So it doesn't really look like there's a pattern between when you made the resource and how big your store is. If you're a new store and you don't have products made from several years ago, that's okay. Your products can still get picked. Likewise, if you are an old store and you're not making new products anymore, that's okay. They can still pick your products to be pinned. The final question I wondered was, is there a pattern to where these stores are getting pinned from. Are they only choosing American stores? Are they only choosing stores in a specific state? So of the 27 resources that were pinned that I did a deep data dive into, here's a world map. Most of the stores that were pinned came from the US, but that's probably also because most stores on TPT are from the US. My head's probably blocking Australia and New Zealand. I apologize for that. So the countries of the stores that were pinned in this little data science experiment were the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, and Spain. If I show you a map that's just highlighted equally, here's the distribution of the 6 countries. So for me, this tells me that it doesn't matter where in the world you are, your products have a chance of getting pinned by TPT if they match the keyword that they're looking for. And then I wondered, is there a pattern in the US? So I looked at the states where the stores are from. Doesn't really look like there's a pattern. So that means you could be anywhere in the states or anywhere in the world, and your product could be selected by TPT to get pinned to the top of page 1. Did you learn something new? If you have, can you please subscribe to the channel? This is the kind of original groundbreaking research that we do here. And if you've already subscribed to the channel, can you leave a comment and let me know what you think about this? Or for those of you who don't comment on YouTube, feel free to send me an email, mike@SEOTmindset.com. It's always fun to chat with new TPT sellers. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons of TPT deciding to do an experiment where they pin resources to the top of page 1. To try to be more objective, I did a plus minus interesting analysis. I spent a few minutes just brainstorming all the good things from this. I spent a few minutes just brainstorming all the negative things that might come out of this. And then I spent a few minutes brainstorming all the interesting things or things that I wonder about. So in terms of the plus side, one idea might be that maybe there's more variety for buyers. So if it's just based on the algorithm, you probably get the same results. And if you search for that term and you see something new there, maybe that will catch your attention and maybe that will make you happy because it's a product you haven't seen before. So maybe when TPT pins results to the top of search, maybe they're finding that buyers are happy because they're finding fresh resources, and maybe they're seeing data that the buyers are buying more because of this pinned experiment. The other benefit is that there are more sales for underseen resources. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you could have the best resource from a pedagogical perspective. It is awesome. And you know it's awesome because it works so well in your classroom. But because you're competed in an oversaturated niche, your resource never gets seen. So if your resource gets pinned to the top of search and you get more sales and you get just a little bit of a hand up, then that's enough for that product to take off maybe and to continue to hold its own. Maybe. Another idea I had is maybe this keeps stores that are promoted, maybe those sellers are encouraged to keep on selling on TPT. So I chat with sellers who are just beginning and they haven't made any money yet. And I chat with sellers in the 7-figure club. And the common story that I hear is we're all trying to get proof of concept that what we are doing is working. Otherwise, we're going to switch to something else. And if you're at the beginning of the game and you're making $0, then if you don't start to make sales on TPT, then you might start switching and trying to sell on Etsy. You might try Amazon. You might get a real job. I don't know. At the 500K club and the 7-figure club, you're already getting sales. So when you try something new, it's a question of, okay, I need proof of concept that this new mechanism is working. Otherwise, I'm going to switch back and try something else. So larger sellers are creating their memberships. They're running Facebook ads. Maybe they're trying to optimize their Facebook ads. But if they don't see a return on investment for that use of time, then they're going to switch. So we're all looking for proof of concept to continue. And I wonder if you are a seller that is lucky enough to have a resource pinned to the top. And I know a few sellers who've had this experience, and all of a sudden a resource started to take off and sell, and they're making hundreds of dollars for that resource. And when they look into the keywords to try to figure out why that is, they realize that they've been pinned to the top of search. And maybe that taste of success is enough to keep that seller motivated in the TPT seller game. I spent some time brainstorming some of the cons and maybe the downside to pinning resources on TPT search. I think one downside is that it breaks trust in the marketplace. So if you're a TPT seller and you're working really hard and you're trying to optimize your product and you made new covers and you made a new preview and you made a video preview and you did it with product photography, and then all of a sudden there's a resource that's pinned to the top of the search term you're going after, and it doesn't even have all the covers, and it's missing a PDF preview, that just seems unfair. because you're working so hard and that resource just got an easy ticket to position one. So then you start to wonder, well, if they're doing this to the algorithm, they can change the algorithm at any point, and that will ruin my TPT business. Then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, well, if they're going to change the algorithm, I need to diversify where I sell. So then maybe you start looking at other teacherpreneur platforms because you don't trust that TPT is going to manage the search algorithm in a way that is consistent and fair that you can win at. Another downside for buyers, as well as sellers, is the perception that TPT search is broken. If I went to Google and I searched up something and then it gave me a pretty crappy result, I start to think worse of Google. And if I don't think Google will produce high quality results, it's super easy. I don't have to use Google. I can use a different search engine. And in fact, Search GPT, Search AI, these are valid contenders for the search space. So if you're a teacher and you go to TPT to search, and TPT is your search engine, and all of a sudden you're searching up reading and you come across a product that doesn't look polished, because normally for high competition keywords, they are polished resources that have proven the test of time that buyers have purchased. So you know you're getting quality stuff. And then you get this resource that's kind of crappy. Well, how good is TPT search then? So now maybe you switch to Google search. Pinning resources to the top of TPT search breaks trust in the ecosystem. Finally, another downside it came up with is pinning resources to the top of search probably doesn't affect a lot of keywords, but it's now a new scapegoat, because anytime that you have lower sales, you can say, oh, it's because TPT is playing with the algorithm. Look, in this other example, Mike shows that there's pinned results at the top. So that's probably impacting my sales. I'm getting pushed down a spot or two, and therefore my sales are dropping. Whereas maybe your sales are dropping because it's a seasonal topic and teachers aren't teaching fractions or doing that topic at that time. But because we don't know what we don't know and we see examples of TPT manipulating the results, then we start to think, oh, TPT is just manipulating everything, even though there might be other reasons why our sales are down. So for example, Algolia published a customer story about teachers pay teachers, building a rich and flexible search platform to scale a growing marketplace. This is an older post because I don't believe the person who wrote this is a data scientist at Teachers Pay Teachers anymore, based on their LinkedIn account. But if I scroll down, TPT has been using Algolia since 2019, and I can see some of the features they're using are dynamic re-ranking and AI. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that dynamic re-ranking is basically where your resource gets a boost or a drop depending on how attractive it is to teachers. So do teachers click on the resource? Do teachers add it to cart? Are there other conversion event signals? If there are a lot within the last 30 days, your resource gets bumped up. Here's the image that I love, but basically product number 5 here drops down to rank number 20 when people are searching for Lego, because product number 5 isn't actually Lego. It looks like pencil crayons. So people aren't clicking on it when they're searching for Lego, and then that product just gradually drops in search. So this is why your product might be dropping if you're in the top 20 or the top 100 positions on TPT search. Your covers and your title and your snippet just aren't attractive to a human from a sales psychology perspective. And so because it's not attractive, then your position rank drops. If your position rank drops, your sales drop. So maybe your sales are dropping because you don't have attractive covers, but it's easier for us to say, hey, my covers are dropping because TPT is pinning resources to the top. By the way, if you want to know if you need to fix your covers or your titles or your description, in the Ultimate Bundle, product number 19 is a free Google Sheet version of the self-serve data tool. It's a free way to get a visual representation of your sales funnel for your products on TPT. I can see that this resource has a preview rate of 23%. So 23% of the people who look at this product page look at the preview. Of the people who look at the preview, only 9% end up buying. If I want to improve one of these numbers, if I click on the box, it suggests what to do to improve my preview rate or to improve my page views, or if I want to improve my units sold. And this Google Sheet tool is 100% free. Search for TPT seller, find the Ultimate Bundle, scroll down, and if I go to the last page, it's product number 19, the Google Sheet version of the self-serve data tool. Enjoy. Here's something interesting that I was thinking about with this TPT SEO Challenger experiment that they're doing, pinning results. What if Team TPT is doing it because they're trying to distribute the wealth so it's not all in that 0.01 1% of the top sellers who are making millions of dollars. One of the ideas I hear often from small and big sellers is this idea that they don't want to put all of their eggs in the TPT basket because at any point the TPT search algorithm can change and then they would lose everything. This is why sellers start their own stores. They try to sell on other platforms. So TPT sellers who are at the beginning of the game, this is where they experiment with posting their products on multiple teacher platforms. And if you're a larger established seller, then this is where you start your own membership or your own e-commerce, WooCommerce store, and you sell your own resources and you drive traffic from TPT to your membership because at any point TPT can change. Well, what if TPT also has the same mentality that they don't want to have all of their money and earnings and content coming from the 0.1% of the store right now? What if they too want to diversify their risk by having more TPT sellers earn more across the platform so that the loss of a major TPT seller isn't a huge hit to the platform? So maybe Team TPT is doing this experiment to see if they can distribute the wealth for high traffic keywords to undiscovered resources that could sell well if only they were seen by teachers. A while ago, a TPT seller shared with me this Alex Hormozi video. I'm going to play a little clip because he talks about how the business that we think we are in is not actually the business that we're in. If I were to ask you, what business are you in? You would probably say, I create lessons for teachers. And I think Alex Hormozi would point out that's not actually the business you're in. Watch this.
Made the mistake in almost every business that I've been in thinking I was getting into one business when in reality, I was getting into a very different business. And discovering the real business that you're actually in is what will unlock the amount of growth and money making that you really want to get into. It's usually the second and third level of entrepreneurship within whatever opportunity you're pursuing. So let me give you an example to kind of make this real. When I got into the gym business, I liked fitness. And so I thought that the business was going to be about like macros and results and workouts and all of that. That's what I thought the business was going to be about. But once I got into the business, I realized it was actually just about marketing and sales. That specific business is about marketing and sales overall. Now, when I make these generalizations, all businesses are like cars. Like if you don't have wheels, the car's not going to move. If you don't gas, the car's not going to move. If you don't have an engine, the car's not going to move. But the question is, what is the biggest limiter? What's the biggest thing that gives you the most return in that specific vehicle or that for specific business?
And then he walks you through a bunch of different businesses that he's been involved in. Some of those businesses were about sales and marketing. Some of those businesses were about human resources retention. So it got me thinking, what business are we in as TPT sellers? And the first answer is we create lessons. But I don't think that's the actual business we're in, because you can have a fantastic lesson unless you are in a undiscovered niche, or unless you got into TPT years ago when it was a lot easier to sell because it was less saturated, then your awesome lessons don't get seen. And if they don't get seen, you don't make sales. So really, as TPT sellers, we're in the business of sales and marketing. How do we market and get our products known, either on TPT search or by bringing our own eyeballs, by doing our own marketing on Facebook or Facebook groups or Pinterest or blogging? Ultimately, we need to get eyeballs and work on sales psychology and work on TPT SEO in order to get sales. But that sales and marketing aspect is if you are a TPT seller. I now have been coming up with the idea that TPT as a platform, they're in the business of facilitating the exchange of goods for money. So they're a marketplace. They connect TPT sellers who have a solution to a problem with teachers who have a problem. And if the perceived value of your resource greatly exceeds the perceived value of the price, then they purchase and both sides are happy. But the more I think about it, I think TPT as a platform is in the business of retention. So an example that the Alex Hormozi video gives is he talks about a company that does residential or commercial cleaning. And the challenge with running a cleaning business isn't that it's hard to get customers. You get customers because people want their house cleaned. The problem with a cleaning business is that it's hard to find people who are willing to do the job. So then you're constantly losing people who can do the job and replacing them with new people who can do the job. And then they don't like the job, or they're not seeing success, or for whatever reason, the job isn't working for them, and then they quit, and then you have to hire more people to do that very job. I think that's what TPT is as a platform. TPT sellers come, they create resources, the resources don't sell, so then those sellers give up. So then you have stagnant resources on the platform. And then if TPT has a decay factor, or if they are penalizing resources that don't get updated a lot, then those resources start to sink. And then you're stuck with resources that are active from active sellers who are having success. Most of that money is locked up in the top part of the 100th percentile. And if they leave, sure, you'll have other resources to take their place, but maybe the fear is that those resources aren't as great as they could be. Or maybe someone who started and they had an awesome resource, but because it wasn't selling, they gave up and they left. So what if this TPT SEO challenger experiment that TPT is running by pinning resources at the top, these challenger resources, to see how they do against the incumbents? What if this is actually a master plan to experiment and see whether they can distribute the wealth of the platform across more TPT sellers so they're less vulnerable to the top sellers leaving and going on their own marketplaces? And by rewarding some newer sellers who get the taste of success, who then try to recreate that success, but don't realize that that success was because TPT artificially pinned them to the top. But now that they've tasted, they're more motivated to try to figure out how to get their other products to that stage of success. So if that was the goal for TPT, then I think there's a problem with pinning stores who are very successful. And that's going to be a controversial idea, but hear me out. And then leave your comments below. Let's say you're a new store and all of a sudden a product starts selling really well. So you're one of these red stores. You have fewer than 100 followers. You have fewer than 100 reviews, less than 1,000. You're still trying to figure this out. And then you have a product that takes off. You're going to be excited because you hear the ka-chings and you're going to be like, okay, what did that product do? I'll try to create more products like that, where really the product was successful because it got pinned. But now you have this renewed energy to work on your store. So then you keep on going, you go a little bit longer, and hopefully you keep on going until you crack the code of success. On the other hand, if you are in the green zone and you're over 10,000 store reviews or over 100,000 store reviews, and you're making lots of money, you're making 6 digits, 7 digits a year, will you really notice the extra sales from one of these pinned resources? I'm not sure that you would. Would you notice if your sales drop because your resources are pushed down a little bit? Maybe, maybe not. I think sometimes our sales get pushed down for other reasons like dynamic re-ranking. I think if you're at the 6 or 7 figure club, a lot of people are buying Facebook ads. You're just running ads. You're not doing A/B testing. You're hoping that the ads work. And the only way that you have a measurement of success is when I turn the ads off, my sales go down. When I turn the ads back on, my sales for that product goes up. And if that's the only optimization that you're doing, I think there are probably areas where you can reduce your costs. Why do I think this? Because Alex Hermosi, when he talks about it, he says his team constantly does A/B testing. Every Monday, they look at the test results, they try to improve it. And if they can't improve something after 3 weeks of the same, like of doing different variations of it, A/B, AC, then they keep that and then they work on a different part of the ad. So they are constantly revising and constantly monitoring. Whereas if you're just running Facebook ads and you're not monitoring A/B testing, I wonder if your costs are astronomically high. But people in that green zone, will they even notice the extra sales that come from having one of their resources randomly pinned to the top? Maybe, maybe not. If TPT's goal in this experiment is to motivate sellers into selling more and distribute the wealth so that they are less at risk of the 0.1 top percent leaving the platform, then I wonder if they should instead be focusing on stores that have fewer than 1,000 reviews and choosing products from these areas because they're most likely to notice an increase in sales and want to keep going. Now, do I think all resources from new stores should be promoted? Absolutely not. I think right now, as an outsider doing commentary, I wonder if the only criteria for selection is just randomly choose a product that has that keyword, that has fewer than 100 reviews, pin it to the top, let it grow. So that's why some of those products have over 100 reviews. And then after a certain amount of time, unpin it and see where it falls naturally to search. And I think that might be the only criteria because we have examples of products that don't have a preview. And we have examples of products that don't have complete covers. I seem to recall someone mentioning that back when TPT was doing their personalized search experiment and you had resources showing up at the top of search that didn't have covers or didn't have previews, that TPT could prevent those resources from getting to the top of the search page. And I wonder if TPT needs to add this sort of criteria as well. The only way that you can get pinned as a resource is if you made a PDF and you have 4 covers and you have at least 1 review or 2 reviews or at least 5 reviews, because then that might encourage sellers who are motivated. They're trying, they're seeing a little bit of success. They have awesome products. They're starting to get some reviews. If only they got noticed a little bit more, they could keep going. But they can't because they have so few reviews that the algorithm will never allow them to get to the top of the first 4 pages for dynamic re-ranking to kick in. So then they can never win with that keyword. What do you think? So if you learned something new, or if you agree or disagree, can you please share this video in your online spaces, your TPT forums, your Facebook groups, with your TPT besties, in your mastermind groups, in your private emails, in your WhatsApp messages? I think this is something that we need to be talking about as TPT sellers because it impacts our platform. Let's sum up this episode with some TPT SEO takeaways. The first takeaway is that right now, it seems like any product with few reviews can be randomly selected by TPT to rank for a keyword. Doesn't matter if it's a new resource or an old resource. Doesn't matter where in the world your store is located. Doesn't matter if your store is big or small. I think maybe the only control factor we might have is to have resources that teachers are searching for. I know by looking at the TPT seller blog, of the 100 keywords here for kindergarten for November and December, at least 27 of them seem to have resources pinned to the top. Some resources like Thanksgiving or Veterans Day didn't have resources pinned to the top. And I wonder if that's because TPT goes in and removes seasonal keywords after they are done. So if I was trying to optimize my chance of getting randomly selected by TPT for this pinned resource, I would make sure that I had keywords from this TPT seller blog list in my products. So although it doesn't matter if your store is big or small, I think the interesting question is, should it matter if your store is big or small for TPT to randomly select you to get pinned to the top of search? One of my favorite cartoons comes from the New Yorker. It's by Bob Mankoff. You can buy the print from the artist on Fine Art America. I might ask Santa for this for Christmas, but the idea is if you're a small fish, there is no justice in the world. If you're a slightly bigger fish, there is some justice in the world. And if you're the big fish, the world is just. I wonder how your store size influences your attitudes and ideas about whether or not TPT should be pinning results to the top. But the 2 questions I would love to hear your comments on, either in the TPT SEO Facebook group community or in the SEOTpreneur Pro community network, or leave a comment below in the YouTube comments. But should it matter if your store is big or small for TPT to ping your resource to the top? And the second question is, should it matter if TPT is manipulating search results? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.